Roufaja, come to Mama. Run, Roufaja. Run as fast as you can and never look back. Never look back at something that never was and never will be something of importance. Because all that's important to me right now is you, Roufaja. You, me, and us. So no matter how much your feet bleed, no matter how much your stomach aches of starvation, no matter how much you miss your dead brother, hold back your tears and stay strong, for we have a long road ahead of us. Let's just say that this very road has not been kind to us in the past. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no strength but with God, and we will get through this. Although not my own, the story of a 6-year-old girl named Roufaja and her mother Fatima echo the hundreds of thousands of others who have found themselves in the center of the Rohingya genocide. And you would think that we have learned. You would think that we have learned from the tragedies such as the Holocaust, the Trail of Tears, and the Rwandan genocide that race and religion are by no means deciding factors in the survival of a human being. You would think that we have learned. Nevertheless, these sentiments are echoed once again in the modern genocide against Rohingya Muslims of Myanmar. The Rohingya Muslim minority are considered to be the world's most persecuted groups in history, and their plights are instigated by the Buddhist majority military and government of Myanmar, who through their violent attacks systematically target the Rohingya Muslims with impunity. So today, let's bandage our feet as we prepare ourselves for the impact of the problems of this crisis. Then we'll look over our shoulders at the causes, and finally, embrace safety with a legislative solution. But first, our feet. Now, there are two main problems in this crisis, and the first is that innocent people are being thrown out of their homes on account of their religion, and unfortunately, the phrase thrown out of their homes is an understatement. According to The Guardian, militants have been burning Rohingya villages and homes to the ground, along with executing, raping, and torturing many members of the Muslim minority. With such a threat, the Rohingya Muslims have no other option than to flee their own homes. Despite this, Myanmar's government, which supposedly conducted its own investigation into the crisis, claims that it found no evidence suggesting systematic violence against the Rohingya Muslims. Controversial as this may seem, there is no way to verify that the government is actually telling the truth, and that's because the United Nations, outside organizations, and journalists have been barred from conducting investigations of their own. Working around this, the banned entities decided to conduct surveys of those who have fled and those who are in the process of doing so. Not surprisingly, last February, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights published a report in which refugees told stories of gang rape, mass killings, and brutal beatings. More than half of the women interviewed claimed to be victims of sexual assault. As you can see, Myanmar's government was not exactly accurate in its investigation. And unfortunately for the newfound refugees, finding safety in refugee camps is not better than the terror that they face in their own homes. And that's what takes us to our second problem. And that's the plethora of individuals seeking safety in refugee camps is alarming. According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, as of the 4th of October, Bangladesh hosts more than 800,000 Rohingya refugees, a number that continues to increase daily. With so many incoming refugees, newcomers have been forced to sleep under makeshift tarps due to lack of aid and availability. And as a result of this lack of resources, the refugees have had to fight amongst themselves in order to get their necessities. On the 15th of September 2017, people died. In a stampede, as supplies are being thrown out of relief trucks near a refugee camp. After such a life-threatening and taxing journey, the worst thing that could happen would be to die in safety. And unfortunately, as these innocent people continue to be oppressed, they will continue to flow into these overcrowded refugee camps, risking their lives in the process. But as for right now, they can do nothing more than to sit and wait for something to happen. Hopefully, for the better. Now, let's look over our shoulders at the causes of this crisis. Many leaders have come out to condemn the atrocities in Myanmar, from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau sending a formal letter to the government of Myanmar, to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan being one of the first to call it a genocide. And while these expressions of disapproval are important, unfortunately they are as far as we have come to any sort of solution. You see, we can continue to call this an atrocity, but it will continue to be one until we do something about this. The current leader of Myanmar, on the other hand, refuses to even consider this an issue in her own country. Nobel Peace Prize laureate President Aung San Suu Kyi was considered the Nelson Mandela of Myanmar for many years, after being the first elected de facto leader of a country previously led by a military dictatorship. However, when asked about the ethnic cleansing happening on her own turf, the so-called champion of human rights claimed in a BBC News interview that I don't think there's any ethnic cleansing going on. In fact, I think that ethnic cleansing is too strong an expression to use for what's actually going on. Now, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be surprised to see her Nobel Peace Prize retracted. Unfortunately, due to Suu Kyi's reluctance to call this ethnic cleansing what it is, almost all humanitarian aid has been cut off. And with the lack of aid an already prevalent issue, the Rohingya Muslims have essentially had to fend for themselves. Because as of right now, it's quite obvious that their leader is not going to be of much help. Many people believe that the cause for the most recent military reaction against the Rohingya was as a result of the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, or ARSA for short, who conducted an attack on state security posts on August 25th of 2017. And while this may be the cause for the most recent military reaction, this ethnic cleansing of Rohingyas is in no way new. In fact, it started almost a half-century prior. According to the New York Times, mass exoduses of Rohingyas ensued in 1978, the 1990s, 2012, and in October of last year, leaving this most recent attack almost completely out of the picture. However, according to the Washington Post, Myanmar claims that it is fighting against a terrorist group, ARSA. This is a refrain we have heard before and a response we know all too well. It should be clear that not every Rohingya Muslim is a member of ARSA. It should be clear that the actions of a small group of individuals cannot and will not be used against the rest of the population who have not done anything wrong. This is a classic example of when a corrupt government uses verbiage to victimize and oppress. Myanmar is systematically killing people on the basis of xenophobic principles and blaming it on them, and we will not stand for it. Thus, I advocate the immediate enactment of the following legislation: a resolution to deliver justice to the Rohingya Muslims of Myanmar. Be it resolved that the United Nations Security Council here assembled enact the following 5-part legislation. Section 1. All United Nations member states shall pledge to economically sanction Myanmar. Section 2. United Nations peacekeepers shall be deployed into Myanmar. Section 3. Funds shall be allocated towards Bangladesh and other neighboring countries in order to assist with the refugee crisis. Section 4. All violations of international law shall be reported to the United Nations Security Council. And Section 5, this bill shall be enacted immediately. All in all, there's a solution to this growing problem. It may take time, but we can do it. Now, most of you are probably sitting here thinking to yourselves that this has nothing to do with you at all. Well, think again. You see, every time a genocide occurs, a genocide that kills hundreds of thousands of people and changes our lives forever, we're promised that something as atrocious as this will never happen again. Well, here we are. And who knows who will be next? So enact this legislation to ensure that the injustice placed upon the Rohingya Muslims of Myanmar no longer holds us back, and that genocide will be a thing of the past. But until then, never forget little Roufaja, who cries out to us and says, "We run." We run as you hum. We sigh of disbelief, we sigh of grief, we run, and you just hum. You twiddle your thumbs as mine have become gruesome. We wail as my brother is thrown into the flames while you play games, while you ignore that right outside your door is a war, not with guns but with suns in a state of tailspin, and you just hum. You haven't endured what I have, because you weren't there when my mother was slain, because you weren't there when my brother chose to end his pain. So believe me when I claim that as you hum, we run, and as you live your life, we wish we had one. So stop the tune and make some room, because people have died, and until you've tried, we will be stuck in this genocide. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. There is no strength but from God, and we will get through this. Signed, Roufaja.